My fiancé whispered. I feel like marrying you would mean settling before my life really begins. I took off the ring, placed it on the table, and left calmly. Almost a year later, she saw my wedding photos online while sitting alone posting tweets about timing ruining everything late at night. I feel like marrying you would mean settling before my life really begins. That's what she said. Not in a fight. Not after a bad night. She said it quietly, almost gently, like she was telling me about the weather outside. I didn't say anything for a long time. I just looked at her face, really looked, and I realized she wasn't ashamed of the words. She wasn't even nervous about them. And that told me everything I needed to know about the next 60 seconds of my life. I didn't throw anything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her what she meant, because I already knew what she meant. I reached down, slowly, and I slid the ring off her finger myself. She let me. She actually let me. I set it on the table between us, right next to her half-finished glass of wine, and I picked up my jacket. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back, and I almost made it to the elevator without my hands shaking. Almost. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest of this. I was 29. Willow and I had been together for 4 years. We lived in a one-bedroom on the Upper West Side, which is not a cheap thing to do, and we had built everything we had around the assumption that we were building it together. That's the setup. That's all the background you get, because the rest of this story moves fast. The proposal had happened 7 months before that night. I'd done it right. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because it matters. I didn't just pull out a ring over dinner. I flew her to Vermont for a weekend in October, right when the leaves were changing, and I got down on one knee on a trail overlooking a valley that looked like something out of a painting. She cried. She said yes. She grabbed my face with both hands, and she kissed me like she meant it. And for 7 months, we planned a wedding together. Venues, guest lists, flowers. She sent me pictures of at midnight asking which ones I liked more. My mother met her parents twice. My best friend Beckett was already writing his best man speech. None of that existed in a vacuum. None of it happened without her full and enthusiastic participation. So when I say I didn't see it coming, I want you to understand that I'm not being naive or oblivious. I genuinely did not see it coming. But I should have. I think I should have. The week before that night, something was already different. I couldn't name it at the time. I just felt it the way you feel a shift in air pressure before a storm. Willow started staying at her friend Tegan's apartment more. Not always. Not dramatically. Just more than usual. And when she was home, she was on her phone constantly. Scrolling, typing, setting it face down when I walked by. I told myself she was stressed about work. She'd just been promoted at the agency where she worked. She was doing brand strategy for a couple of mid-size fashion labels. And her hours had gotten longer. Her energy had gotten thinner. I told myself, this is just a season. Every relationship has seasons. I didn't realize it then, but that was already me making excuses for something I hadn't fully admitted I was seeing. The night it happened, she'd asked me to come over to Tegan's to pick her up. That was normal enough. What wasn't normal was that Tegan wasn't there. It was just Willow, sitting at the kitchen island in Tegan's apartment, with a glass of red wine and this particular expression on her face. The kind of expression that means someone has been rehearsing. I need to talk to you about something, she said. For years in, you know what that sentence means. You know it the way you know which stair in your apartment building creaks at night. I sat down across from her. I didn't say anything. I just waited. And she looked at me with those eyes. And I want to be clear, she was genuinely beautiful. Willow was genuinely someone who turned heads walking down Columbus Avenue. And she said, I love you. I want you to know that first. That's also a sentence I know how to read. She stopped. Started again. I feel like I've been trying to talk myself into being ready. And I keep thinking, the wedding is getting closer, and I keep waiting to feel certain. And I don't. I said, you don't feel certain. I feel like I'm 28, she said. And I feel like there's so much I haven't done yet. And I feel like marrying you would mean. She stopped again. I waited again. I feel like marrying you would mean settling before my life really begins. The room was very quiet after that. I could hear the street noise from outside Tegan's window. A cab horn. Someone laughing on the sidewalk below. And I sat there for what felt like a long time. I looked at the ring on her finger, the ring I'd saved for, planned for, driven to 3 different jewelers for before I found the right one, and I reached across the table. She didn't pull her hand back. She just watched me slide it off. I set it on the table. I picked up my jacket. I said, okay. Just that. Just okay. And I left. I walked home. It was 42 blocks, and I walked every single one of them. It was November, it was cold, and I didn't button my jacket. Beckett called me around midnight. I think Willow must have texted him, or Tegan had, or someone had, and I let it go to voicemail. I didn't cry that night. I'm not saying that to sound tough. I'm saying it because I think I was still in the part of shock where your brain hasn't caught up yet, where you're functioning and moving and existing, but something behind your eyes has gone very, very still. I sat on my couch for a while. I looked at our apartment. The throw blanket she'd bought at the Brooklyn Flea. The framed print above the bookshelf that we'd argued about for 20 minutes before agreeing to hang it there. The coffee mug with the small chip in the handle that she always grabbed first, even though she knew I liked that one. And I thought, I have to move. That thought, I have to move, became the first sentence of a new chapter one wasn't expecting to write for a long time. I was out of that apartment in 6 weeks. Beckett had a friend with a place in Astoria, and I took it. I threw myself into work. I was in architecture, project management side, not design, and there was a commercial development in Long Island City that suddenly had my full and undivided attention. I ran in the mornings. I started going to the gym with Beckett's friend Griffin, who was training for a half marathon and had absolutely no interest in hearing about my feelings, which was, genuinely, exactly what I needed. I called my mother every Sunday like I always had. She didn't bring up Willow unless I did. She didn't push. She just said, every single Sunday, "You eat enough this week?" I was doing the work of getting through it. I won't romanticize the mess of those first few months. But something happened around February that I didn't expect. And this is the part where I need to tell you about Presley. Presley worked in the same building as one of my project managers. I don't mean we worked together. I mean our paths crossed because her firm, she was a structural engineer, was doing consultation work on the same Long Island City development. The first time I actually talked to her, we were both waiting for the elevator on the 14th floor at around 7:30 in the evening. She had a hard hat tucked under her arm, and she was eating a granola bar and reading something on her phone. She looked up at me and said, "Is this elevator always this slow, or did I anger it specifically?" I said, "It's been personally offended since Thursday, I think." She laughed. The elevator arrived. We rode down to the lobby together, and she walked out toward the subway, and I walked out toward the street, and that was it. That was the whole story. For about 3 more weeks. And then our schedules crossed again. And then they crossed again. And somewhere around late March, Beckett looked at me across a table at a bar in Greenpoint and said, "You're different." "Different how?" "I don't know," he said. Lighter. Like something unclenched. I didn't explain it to him then, but I knew what he was talking about. Presley and I weren't rushing anything. That has to be said clearly. She knew what I'd come out of, broadly speaking, not because I dumped it on her, but because it came up naturally, the way things do when you're spending real time with someone. She told me about her own last relationship, a guy named Camden who'd relocated to Seattle for a job and decided long distance wasn't something he wanted to do. And there was a kind of parallel there. 2 people who'd had doors shut on them by other people's choices. We weren't bitter about it. That was the thing. Neither of us was performing some kind of healing arc. We were just present, in the way that's actually rare. In the way that, when it happens, you don't have to overthink it. By summer, I knew. Not the anxious kind of knowing. Not the "I think this might be real, but I'm scared it isn't" kind. The clear kind. The kind where you catch yourself mid-laugh at something stupid she said, and you think, yes. This. I proposed to Presley in October. Exactly 1 year after I'd proposed to Willow. That wasn't intentional. But I don't think it was an accident either. I think something in me needed that symmetry. I took her to a rooftop garden in Brooklyn. She loved plants. She had 17 of them in her apartment and had named most of them. And I got down on one knee, and the look on her face was different from Willow's. It wasn't tearful and dramatic. It was more like warm, like the sun coming through a window. She said yes, and she held my face in her hands and looked at me for a second without saying anything first. And I knew I was in the right place. We got married in March. Small, 40 people. A venue in the West Village that had exposed brick and low lighting and a sound system that Beckett, who handled the music, absolutely abused with a playlist that somehow included both Otis Redding and a song from a movie I'd never seen. It was imperfect in the best ways. Griffin cried during the vows, which he would deny to his grave. My mother held it together until the cake, and then she didn't. And Presley stood across from me in a dress she'd had made in Williamsburg, and she said her vows without a single note card, looking directly at me the whole time, and every word was specific to us. Not a template, not borrowed language. Us. Beckett took a photo on his phone during the reception, candid, not staged, and posted it the next morning. We were laughing at something. I don't even remember what. But the photo caught us mid-laugh, with Presley's hand on my arm and my face turned toward hers, and it was so obviously, visibly, undeniably happy that even looking at it myself, I felt something almost like embarrassment about it. He tagged us both. The photo lived on the internet. Public. Visible to anyone who looked. I want to pause here and tell you something I didn't know at the time. Because I didn't find this out until weeks later, from Tegan, who had, after everything, stayed loosely in my orbit through Beckett, and she told me with this particular look on her face. The look that means, I don't know if I should tell you this, but I'm going to anyway. She told me that the night after Beckett posted that photo, Willow had gone on a late-night Twitter spiral. Not about me, specifically. Nothing that mentioned my name. But a series of tweets that Tegan screenshotted and still had on her phone when she showed me. Timing is everything, and when timing ruins something good, you never really get it back. Watching people move on is a unique kind of grief, especially when you're the one who made them. I keep telling myself I'm not ready for what I wanted. I don't know when that stops being growth and starts being an excuse. Some nights you see something and you realize you made a choice you can't unmake, and you have to sit with that. Posted between midnight and 2 a.m. The timestamps were visible in the screenshots. The photo Beckett had posted went up at 9 a.m. She saw it. She sat alone in her apartment, and she wrote those things to no one and everyone at once. I didn't feel victorious when Tegan told me that. I want to be honest. There was a split second, a very human, very small split second, where something cold and satisfied moved through me. And then it passed. And what I felt instead was just a kind of distance. The way you feel distance from something that used to be right in front of you. Because here's what I had learned, slowly, across the months between that apartment in Astoria and the rooftop in Brooklyn and the venue in the West Village. What I had learned was this. The word she used was settling. She was worried that marrying me would mean settling. And I spent a long time angry at that word. I spent months turning it over. In my worst moments, it felt like a verdict. Like she'd looked at everything I was, everything I tried to be and offer and build, and weighed it, and found it insufficient. And when you're sitting on a couch at 1 a.m. in a borrowed apartment with a leaky bathroom faucet, that verdict lands hard. But here's what I've come to understand about that word, now that I have enough distance from it to see it clearly. Settling is what you call something when you haven't decided yet what you actually want. It's not a statement about the person you're with. It's a statement about the clarity you haven't found yet. Willow wasn't wrong that she wasn't ready. She was wrong about where the blame for that unreadiness lived. Because it wasn't me. It was never me. There's another thing I need to tell you. And this is the part that reframes everything I've told you so far. About 6 weeks before she said those words to me, before the table, before the ring, before the elevator walk home in the November cold, something happened that I noticed and filed away and told myself was nothing. I was home on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd left the office early because of a project delay, and Willow didn't know I was there. She was on the phone in the bedroom. And through the door, which wasn't fully closed, I heard her say something to whoever she was talking to. She said, "I just feel like I'm about to be somebody's wife before I even figure out who I am." And then a pause. And then she laughed at whatever the other person said. And then she lowered her voice, and I couldn't hear the rest. I stood in the hallway for about 10 seconds. And then I went to the kitchen, made coffee, never said a word. I told myself, she's just venting. Everyone vents. This doesn't mean anything. But I knew. Some quiet, honest part of me already knew. I just wasn't ready to know that I knew. The month before that, she'd started a new hobby, taking ceramics classes in Chelsea on Thursday evenings. I thought it was nice. She came home with clay under her fingernails and a kind of energy that was hard to define. Animated. Lit up. She showed me a mug she'd made that was uneven and a little lopsided, and she held it up like it was a trophy. "That's great," I told her. "It's terrible," she said. "I love it." She was happy. She was genuinely happy. But I wasn't the thing making her happy. And I think that scared her. I think she looked at that mug and that class and that Thursday night energy and thought, "I want more of this." And somehow, in her mind, the ring on her finger had become the obstacle between her and more. I was the obstacle. That's a specific kind of awful to process. Not because she was being cruel, but because she wasn't. Tegan told me something else, too. This part was harder. She told me that after I left, after I set the ring down and walked out, Willow had cried. Not performed it. Actually cried. She sat in Tegan's kitchen and cried for 2 hours. And at some point she said, I think I just made the worst decision of my life. And Tegan said she didn't know what to tell her. Because you can't unsay something like that. You can't reach across a table and pick the ring back up. Not when someone has already walked 42 blocks home in the cold. Not when someone has already started building the version of their life that doesn't include you. I thought about that a lot. About the moment she realized what she'd done. Not with satisfaction. Not with anger. With something more like grief, honestly. Because I think about the version of this story where she'd never said it. Where she'd kept that feeling private and talked to a therapist and worked through it and shown up to our wedding still not sure and married me anyway. And I think that would have been a disaster. I think we would have been two people stuck in something that only half of us chose. And I think I would have felt that stuckness for the rest of my life without being able to name it. So as much as it broke something in me to hear those words, settling, before my life really begins, she did me something. An ugly, brutal, badly delivered something. But something still. The tweets were eventually deleted. I only know that because Tegan mentioned it in passing, months later. She cleaned up her timeline. Tegan said, "The way you describe someone emptying out a junk drawer. Good for her," I said. And I meant it. Not sarcastically. Not with venom. I meant, I hope she's doing the work. I hope she found whatever she was looking for in ceramics and late nights and open timelines. I hope the life she was afraid of missing started. I'm not going to pretend that the year between Willow's table and Presley's rooftop was easy. Some of it was very bad. Some of it was the kind of bad that lives in your chest at 3 a.m. and doesn't care how functional you were at work that day. Beckett sat with me through some of it. Griffin dragged me through the rest of it by making me run 12 miles a week and refusing to discuss feelings during any of those miles. My mother made me soup when I visited in December, even though I told her I was fine. I was not fine, but I was getting there. And the thing about getting there is that you can't always tell when you've arrived. You just wake up one day and the weight is different. Not gone. Different. Like it redistributed itself somehow. Like your body learned to carry it without leaning. The morning after our wedding, Presley and I woke up in a hotel in the West Village that we'd splurged on. She was still in her pajamas. She had a croissant and she was sitting cross-legged on the bed reading the reviews of the venue on some event website, which is such a specific kind of chaos, I still don't have words for it. "Listen to this," she said. Beautiful exposed brick, but the coat check line was unreasonably long. "Devastating," I said. "The coat check line," she repeated. The coat check line ruined their evening. We should have opened with a coat check acknowledgement during the vows. She started laughing. Full, real, unguarded laughing. And I thought about that photo Beckett had posted. About us caught mid-laugh. And I thought, this is not settling. This is the opposite of settling. This is someone who finds what I find funny and means what she says and builds things with me instead of measuring what she's giving up. This is what choosing right looks like. Not perfect. Not easy at every moment. But chosen. Fully, clearly, without a silent asterisk of reluctance. I heard through mutual connections, not Tegan, someone else, that Willow eventually moved to Austin. Something about the city feeling fresh. A new start. I genuinely hope it worked. I hope Austin gave her whatever she needed. I hope the ceramics class showed up in some form there too. I hold no animosity toward her. I want to say that without it sounding like a performance. What she said to me that night was devastating, and it took me a long time to climb out of. But she was honest. She was honest in the hardest way possible, and she let me leave, and she didn't call me back. And that honesty, as much as it gutted me, is the only reason I ended up in a hotel room with a woman eating a croissant and reading venue reviews the morning after our wedding. I sometimes think about what the ring looked like sitting on that table, under the warm light of Tegan's kitchen, next to that half-finished glass of red wine. There's something final about jewelry on a hard surface. The sound it makes. The way it just stays there, not belonging to anyone. I didn't think about that detail for a long time after. It surfaced later, the way details do when the rest of the noise quiets down. And when it surfaced, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It just felt like a marker. A clean line. Before and after. The last thing Tegan told me, this was maybe 2 months after the wedding, was that Willow had reached out to her. They'd had lunch. And according to Tegan, Willow asked about me. Not out of anything dramatic. Not hoping for news. Just, how is he doing? Tegan told her I was good. That I was happy. That was enough. That was the whole conversation about me. And Tegan said Willow nodded slowly and said, "Good. That's good." And then she picked up her menu. And they talked about something else. I don't have a lesson for you. I don't have a tidy moral packaged at the end. But I'll tell you this. When someone tells you who they are, really tells you, even by accident, even in the worst possible way, believe them immediately. Not with bitterness, not with a need to punish them. Just pick up your jacket, set the ring on the table, and walk out calmly. Because somewhere out there, 42 cold blocks away, the life you actually deserve is already waiting to begin. The morning Beckett posted that photo, the one of us laughing at the reception, I didn't even see it until Presley pointed it out. She turned her phone toward me with this expression. "We look embarrassingly happy," she said. I looked at the photo. She was right. We really did. "I know," I said. She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. And somewhere across the city, alone with her wine and her phone and her quiet apartment, a woman was staring at a screen and typing into the dark. Timing is everything. And when timing ruins something good, you never really get it back. She wasn't wrong about that, actually. Timing is everything. It just wasn't timing that ruined anything. It was a choice. Her choice. Made freely. On a Thursday night in November. At a kitchen table with a half-empty glass of wine and a ring she'd stopped wanting to wear. And me? I was already gone.